I saw the first zombie while hanging 70 feet above the ground in the middle of a snowstorm. At the time, I thought the screaming below was just another robbery. In this city, people screamed all the time. But then I looked down through the steel beams of the unfinished skyscraper and saw a man tearing another man's throat open with his teeth. Not punching him, not stabbing him, biting him. The victim tried to crawl away through the snow, leaving a dark red trail behind him, but the thing chasing him grabbed his leg and ripped him backward like an animal dragging food into the woods. I froze on the ladder. The freezing wind cut through my jacket hard enough to make my chest hurt, but I couldn't move. More screams echoed through the streets below. Car alarms started going off. Then gunshots. Lots of them. One after another. A woman suddenly burst out of a nearby building barefoot, slipping across the icy road while crying for help. She only made it halfway across the street before 3 more infected tackled her into the snow. I'll never forget the sound she made. Not because it was loud, because it stopped too fast. The city died in less than 10 minutes, and I watched the beginning of it from high above the ground. That was 4 months ago. Now I live at the top of a construction crane, 300 feet above a frozen city full of zombies. And if I fall asleep at the wrong time, I die. The crane used to help build luxury apartments near the river. Now it's my fortress, my prison, and the only reason I'm still alive. The operator cabin at the top is barely bigger than a bathroom. The windows are cracked, the heater died months ago, and every time the wind hits the crane hard enough, the entire structure groans like it's about to collapse into the streets below. But the infected can't reach me. At least, that's what I kept telling myself. Down below, the city is buried in snow and corpses. Abandoned cars are frozen into the roads like statues. Traffic lights still blink over empty intersections. Some apartment windows glow at night from emergency generators that somehow still work, but most buildings are dark now, completely dead. Sometimes I see movement behind those windows. Sometimes silhouettes. Sometimes people waving for help. I stopped waving back weeks ago. Every survivor eventually makes noise, and noise brings them. The infected roam the streets endlessly, wandering through blizzards like starving wolves. During the day they move slowly, stiff from the cold. At night they become something else entirely. Faster, angrier, like the darkness wakes them up. I learned that lesson the hard way. The first week on the crane nearly killed me. I had no food except half a bag of chips and melted snow water collected in an old coffee container. My hands were so cold they cracked open and bled whenever I climbed the ladder. Sleep was worse. I tied myself to the operator chair with electrical cable because I was terrified of rolling over and falling 300 feet in my sleep. Every creak of metal sounded like death. Every gust of wind made the crane sway slightly above the streets. And below me, They waited. Hundreds of them. Maybe thousands. Most just wandered aimlessly around the construction site, stumbling through the snow between cement mixers and stacks of frozen steel beams. But sometimes they looked up. Those moments scared me more than anything, because they almost seemed aware. Not human, but not completely mindless either. One night, during a blizzard so strong I could barely see the city lights anymore, I woke up to a loud metallic bang somewhere beneath me. At first I thought part of the crane was breaking apart. Then another bang echoed upward through the steel structure. Then another. Clang, clang, clang. I grabbed my flashlight and leaned carefully out the cabin door. The freezing wind nearly ripped it from my hand. For a few seconds I saw nothing except snow swirling through darkness. Then the flashlight beam landed on movement far below. My stomach dropped instantly. An infected worker in an orange construction jacket was smashing its head repeatedly against the crane ladder support. Again, 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 like it was trying to break the metal apart. Its face was barely recognizable anymore. Frozen blood covered its chin and neck. One eye dangled half out of the socket, swinging every time it slammed forward. But that wasn't the worst part. The sound attracted others. Shapes began emerging from the storm, one after another. Dozens of infected slowly gathered beneath the crane, standing there, looking up at me. I backed into the cabin without realizing I was moving. My breathing became so fast I thought I was going to pass out. They knew I was up there. I don't know how. Maybe the flashlight. Maybe the noise. Maybe they smelled me somehow. But for the first time since climbing the crane, I realized this place wasn't safe forever. And deep down, I think I already knew the truth. The higher I climbed, the longer the fall would be. The temperature dropped below -15 that night. I know because the bottle of water beside my chair froze solid while I was sleeping. I woke up shaking so violently my teeth felt loose. For a few seconds I forgot where I was. Then the crane groaned above the storm, and I remembered everything. The dead city below, the infected, the cold, the endless height beneath my feet. I forced myself upright and immediately checked the ladder through the cabin window. The infected were still there, not moving much, just standing around the construction site like frozen mannequins buried in snow, watching. I hated when they did that. Most of the time they wandered randomly through the streets, bumping into abandoned cars or disappearing between buildings. But every now and then they gathered beneath the crane and stared upward for hours without making a sound, like they were waiting for me to come down. Eventually, everyone has to come down. Food runs out. Water runs out. Ammo runs out. And winter never stops. My supplies were almost gone. 1 protein bar, half a bottle of painkillers, 3 bullets left in my pistol. That was it. I had stretched everything as long as possible by barely eating. Some days I survived on melted snow and tiny bites of canned food ration carefully enough to make a squirrel depressed. But starvation catches up to you. You can feel it changing your body. Your movements get slower. Your thoughts become foggy. Even climbing the ladder inside the crane started exhausting me. And the worst part? The smell of food started driving me insane. I imagined burgers constantly. Hot coffee. Pizza. Anything warm. Sometimes I dreamed about restaurants still being open somehow, with lights glowing and people laughing like the world hadn't ended. Then I'd wake up freezing in the dark with rusted metal beneath me and realize I was still alive. Still trapped. Still hungry. That morning I made the decision I'd been avoiding for weeks. I had to go down. The nearby apartments probably still contained supplies. Most people died too fast to pack properly before trying to escape. Canned food, medicine, winter clothes, maybe batteries. If I got lucky, maybe even another survivor. Though honestly, survivors scared me almost as much as the infected now. Desperate people do terrible things, especially hungry ones. I checked my pistol again before placing it inside my jacket pocket. 3 bullets. Not enough. The metal ladder was covered in ice during the descent. My hands cramped almost immediately from the cold even through gloves. Halfway down the crane, the wind became weaker, but the sounds of the city grew louder. Distant screams. Metal scraping somewhere far away. The moaning. God, the moaning never stopped. The infected made these horrible low sounds constantly, like sick animals calling to each other through the streets. By the time my boots touched the snowy ground, my legs were trembling, not from exhaustion. Fear. I hadn't stood on the street in nearly 12 days. Everything felt wrong down there now. Too enclosed. Too quiet. The unfinished skyscraper towered above me while snow drifted between cement pillars and abandoned machinery. Every shadow looked alive. I moved carefully through the construction site, stepping over frozen tools and piles of ice-covered debris until I reached the fence leading toward the apartment blocks across the street. That's when I saw the child. At first I thought it was just another infected. Small figure. Thin jacket. Standing motionless in the snow. But then it spoke. Please, the voice was weak. Tiny. Human. I nearly dropped my flashlight. The kid couldn't have been older than 10. His face was pale from the cold and his lips had turned purple. He stood near a wrecked police car clutching a backpack against his chest. Please help my mom, he whispered. Every instinct in my body screamed at me to run. This was wrong. Nobody survived alone this long. Especially not a child. But he looked terrified and exhausted. I slowly approached him while keeping my hand near the pistol. "Where is she?" I asked quietly. The boy pointed toward a dark apartment building nearby. "She's hurt." The building entrance stood half open, buried in snow. No lights inside. No movement. I should have left. I know that now. But loneliness destroys your judgment. After months alone on the crane, hearing another human voice felt almost unreal. So I followed him inside. And the second the door closed behind me, I realized I had made the biggest mistake since the apocalypse began. The apartment building smelled like rot and frozen sewage. The moment the door shut behind me, the warmth disappeared completely, replaced by damp air so cold it burned my lungs every time I breathed. The kid walked ahead silently through the dark lobby while clutching his backpack tightly against his chest. Something about him felt wrong now. Not infected, just empty, like he'd already seen too much. My flashlight beam moved across overturned furniture, shattered mailboxes, and dried blood smeared across the floor tiles leading toward the stairwell. No bodies. That bothered me most. Where were the bodies? During the outbreak, people died everywhere. Streets, hallways, apartments. Every building I'd entered before had corpses inside. But this place was almost clean. Too clean. "Your mom upstairs?" I asked quietly. The boy nodded without looking at me. "She can't walk anymore." I tightened my grip around the pistol inside my jacket. Every survival instinct I had kept warning me to leave immediately. But I ignored it. Because after months alone on that crane, part of me desperately wanted another living person to exist, even if it was a mistake. The stairwell was pitch black. Our footsteps echoed upward through the building while snow blew in through broken windows on every floor. The kid kept climbing without slowing down. 4th floor. 5th. 6th. That's when I started hearing noises above us. Soft movement. Multiple footsteps. Very faint. I stopped instantly. The kid didn't. "Wait," I whispered sharply. He froze halfway up the next flight of stairs. "What's upstairs?" For the first time since meeting him, he looked nervous. "She's sick," he said quietly. The footsteps above us stopped too. Complete silence filled the stairwell. Then came a voice from the darkness. "Please don't leave." Adult male. Weak sounding, but definitely human. I raised the flashlight toward the upper landing. 3 people slowly stepped into view. A man holding a kitchen knife. A woman wrapped in blankets. Another teenage boy carrying a pipe. All painfully thin. All staring directly at my backpack. Not my face. My backpack. Food. The man lifted his free hand slowly. "We're not gonna hurt you," he said. That sentence alone made my stomach sink. People only say that when hurting you is already an option. I took one slow step backward down the stairs. The teenage boy tightened his grip on the pipe immediately. The woman noticed it too. "Please," she whispered. "We're starving." The kid below me finally spoke again. "I told them you had food." My heart dropped. Of course he did. That's why he brought me here. I suddenly understood everything. The empty building. No infected nearby. The quiet. These people had survived by trapping desperate survivors who wandered too close. Not killers at first, maybe. But hunger changes people. Fast. The man with the knife looked close to collapsing from starvation. His cheeks were hollow and his hands trembled constantly from weakness. Still dangerous. Desperate people are always dangerous. "We just need some supplies," he said carefully. "Then you can leave." I almost laughed at that. Nobody leaves situations like this safely anymore. Not in this world. Not when food means survival. The teenage boy took another step downward toward me. Bad move. I instantly pulled the pistol from my jacket. Everyone froze. Even me. The gun suddenly felt deafeningly loud in the tiny stairwell. 3 bullets. That's all I had. The man slowly lowered his knife. "Easy," he whispered. The woman started crying silently. The kid stared at the gun like he'd never seen one before. For a moment nobody moved. Then a loud crash echoed from somewhere below us in the building. All our heads turned instantly. Another crash followed. Metal bending. Glass shattering. The infected. The front entrance downstairs exploded open with a horrible screech of tearing metal. And then the screaming started. Not human screaming. The infected. Dozens of them. Maybe more. The sound flooded upward through the stairwell like an avalanche. The starving survivors above me panicked instantly. Oh God, they heard us run. The teenage boy bolted upstairs first. The woman stumbled after him. The man grabbed the child violently and shoved him upward too. Then the infected reached the lower stairwell. I'll never forget that sight. Frozen faces rushing upward through darkness. Open mouths dripping blood. White eyes reflecting my flashlight beam. Too many. Way too many. I fired the pistol. The first infected dropped backward down the stairs. The gunshot echoed like a bomb through the building. Huge mistake. Because suddenly the moaning outside became louder. Much louder. More were coming. The man with the knife grabbed my arm. "Roof!" he screamed. We sprinted upward together while the infected flooded the lower floors beneath us. Every sound became chaos. Footsteps. Screaming. The infected smashing against walls and railings as they climbed unnaturally fast behind us. The child nearly slipped on the icy stairs. I caught him seconds before he fell straight into the infected below. The man shoved open the rooftop door with his shoulder and freezing wind exploded across us instantly. Snow blasted through the darkness so hard I could barely see. The rooftop was completely exposed to the storm. No escape. No weapons. Nowhere left to run. And the infected were already reaching the upper floors beneath us. The rooftop door slammed shut behind us. For about 3 seconds, there was silence. Just the sound of the blizzard roaring across the roof and all of us gasping for air in the freezing dark. Then the infected hit the stairwell door from the other side. Boom! The entire metal door bent inward violently. The woman screamed. Another impact shook the hinges harder. Boom! Snow whipped across the rooftop so heavily I could barely keep my eyes open. The wind was brutal this high up, cold enough to make every breath feel sharp inside my chest. The rooftop itself was massive, covered in thick snow and construction debris frozen solid to the concrete. Satellite dishes. Ventilation units, rusty pipes sticking out of the ice, but no escape ladder, no bridge, nothing. We were trapped. The man grabbed my jacket desperately. "You have more ammo." I shook my head. 3 shots was all I had. His face lost what little hope remained. Behind us the stairwell door bent inward again with an awful metallic scream. The infected were seconds away now. The teenage boy suddenly pointed through the storm. There, at first I couldn't see anything. Then lightning flashed somewhere far across the city skyline. And for half a second, the crane appeared through the snowstorm. My crane, towering above nearby buildings beside the unfinished skyscraper, maybe 30 meters away. Close, but not close enough. Between the rooftop and the crane stood only open air, and one thing connecting them. A construction beam. A single narrow steel beam covered completely in snow and ice. The wind howled harder. The woman looked at the gap and immediately started shaking her head. No, 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 no. Another massive impact hit the rooftop door. The hinges cracked loudly. The infected were seconds away now. The man grabbed the woman's shoulders hard. "We stay here, we die." Nobody argued with him, because we all knew it was true. The teenage boy went first. He rushed onto the frozen beam too quickly, arms stretched outward while snow blasted around him. The beam swayed slightly under his weight. Below us sat a 30-story drop into the streets. One slip, one wrong step, dead. Halfway across, the boy lost balance for a second. My heart stopped instantly. But somehow he recovered and kept moving until finally reaching the other side near the crane structure. "Go!" he screamed through the wind. The woman refused. "I can't." The stairwell door behind us exploded inward slightly. A pale arm reached through the opening blindly. Then another. The infected were forcing themselves through the gap already. The man shoved the woman toward the beam. "You have to move." Crying openly now, she stepped onto the steel carefully. The wind nearly knocked her sideways immediately. I stayed behind with the man near the rooftop door while she crossed slowly, trembling so badly I thought she'd collapse. The infected began squeezing through the broken doorway behind us one by one. Their sounds filled the rooftop instantly. Wet growling, teeth clacking, frozen footsteps crunching through snow. I fired my last bullet into the first infected that emerged. Its skull snapped backward and the body disappeared into the doorway behind it. No ammo left. The man lifted the kitchen knife with shaking hands. "Get the kid across," he told me. "What about you?" He didn't answer. He didn't need to. The infected slammed against the doorway again. More faces appeared behind the broken metal. Too many. The child grabbed my sleeve tightly, terrified. The woman had nearly reached the crane side now. The teenage boy helped pull her off the beam. The man suddenly shoved the kid toward me. "Go!" Then he charged the doorway screaming. Not bravely, not heroically, just desperately. He slammed into the first infected with the knife while more flooded through behind it. I grabbed the child and ran onto the beam instantly. The wind hit us hard enough to nearly throw us off immediately. The kid cried while clinging to my arm as we crossed slowly above the frozen streets. Behind us the rooftop became chaos. Screaming, growling, metal scraping. I glanced back once. Big mistake. The man disappeared beneath a pile of infected near the doorway while snow turned black around them. The sound he made didn't even sound human anymore. The child saw it too, and started screaming. His panic almost got us both killed. He slipped sideways suddenly, one foot sliding completely off the icy beam. I dropped instantly, grabbing his jacket with one hand while my other arm wrapped around the steel beam desperately. For one horrifying second the kid dangled above the city. The storm roared around us. Hundreds of feet below, infected wandered through the streets like ants. My frozen fingers nearly lost grip on his coat. "Please," he screamed.